for 52 years in Maine, and knows Mainer as well, and knows about Mainer's independent streak.
Sure.
And I think that's what this ad really hammers on, most importantly to Mainers who like actually electing independents. But I thought the images of Olympia Snowe and Bill Cohen, two independent Republicans, I mean, those two images contrasted with Susan Collins was almost the most damning part of this entire ad, because they would never behave in the way Susan Collins is behaving right now, kowtowing to Donald Trump.
You're right, Joe, and that's one thing we really noticed. We've developed, this is the long-form version of the ad. There's also a 30-second version, and in both of them emphasize the fact that Maine is famously independent and that they famously want leadership that stands on its own. And that's why they've elected independents and independent-leaning leaders of both parties over time. And in this case, Susan Collins had 10 opportunities yesterday to step up. 10 opportunities where she could have shown that she wasn't just there to rubber stamp Mitch McConnell. This idea they're going to vote for witnesses and evidence at the end of the trial is laughable, and it shows that all this posturing she does is an act. It is not real. She is not an independent player, and unless she stands up and shows something, this kind of pressure will increase over time, because she's going to know that the stinky stuff that is underneath all this is going to continue to roll out. Discoveries will continue to be made. They will be in the public sphere, and she will have to own these votes down the line.
And she'll have to own the votes, as you very well know, that last week of the campaign, when everything starts piling on and all, I mean, everything will be laid bare. Who knows what the American people are going to find out about Donald Trump and this cover-up between now and November. But you mentioned and had a stat in there showing that Susan Collins was the most unpopular senator in America. What a mighty fall she has had over the past 2 years, since she has shown absolutely no willingness and no independence to stand up to Donald Trump. Like you said, that is not the Maine way. That is the Trump way. It is a sad fall for this senator. Do you think there's any hope that she may actually find the grounding that Bill Cohen and that Olympia Snowe and other rock-ribbed Republicans had in that state?
It's a matter of whether she wants her legacy to go down as someone who burned down her integrity for Donald Trump, or someone who took a tough decision and did the right thing and showed that she was going to actually represent her state and not just live in fear of Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. It is a sad commentary on her. And you know, one hopes that she'll find the courage, but she may have to learn a very hard electoral lesson here, because none of this is going to get better. The fish never smells better on the second day. It's going to keep getting worse, and she's going to keep being under pressure. She's one of the most vulnerable incumbents because she has not displayed independence, because she has been so lockstep, and because I think they see the hypocrisy of these things she does with her whole furrowed brow and the whole, oh, I'm so concerned, and then she does exactly what Trump wants in the end.
Yeah, it's always a couple of furrowed brows, and then, yes, sir, Mr. Trump.
Right.
How can I, how can I be a shameless apologist for you, Kurt? Let's go from one former Republican to another former Republican to yet another former Republican. This is what you were talking about earlier, what I've been talking about for some time. Republicans turning everything over to Donald Trump, a lifelong Democrat who has absolutely no concern about Susan Collins, the state of Maine, or anything that doesn't directly involve him.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about this, Joe. It was striking because I was actually Olympia Snowe's press secretary at one point. And I can tell you, when working for her and all the decisions and votes that came across, I never once heard her ask the question, well, what will McConnell think about this? What will President Bush or President Obama think about this? All she ever talked about was how is this going to play back home in Maine? How is this going to impact her constituency? That was the guiding compass for her votes. And it's such a contrast to what we're seeing right now with Senator Collins, who seems to be way more preoccupied with how this is all playing in Washington. and not at all worrying about how this is playing in Portland or in Bangor or Lewiston. And I think, and this is kind of my question for Rick, watching that last vote she took last night where she broke ranks and voted with Republicans, but as you pointed out, 9 other times she voted with McConnell.
Right.
What was that last vote about? What game is she playing?
Look, she's going to try to do the very bare minimum to keep McConnell and Trump from being angry with her. And that bare minimum is insufficient. That bare minimum is not principled. That is one more flavor of cowardice in this case. And it's one more problem that she's going to accrue by pretending that this is a procedural, that these are all procedural votes, that these are nothing burger votes. And she's up for a very sharp shock in that regard, I think.
Walter Isaacson, just anecdotally, if you go up to Maine, Portland, Camden, Auburn, Maine, places like that, you pick up the fact that many voters increasingly are becoming disappointed in Susan Collins always being disappointed and no more than disappointed. Yeah. But, you know, underlying that is a story that's hard to get to, hard to report because it has to do with people's emotions. But the irrational fear that Donald Trump has planted in so many candidates and sitting United States senators, just like Susan Collins, is an undercurrent in this campaign that I have never seen before. What about you?
I think you're exactly right. And if you look at the DNA of Maine, what's in their hearts and souls because of that independent streak you said, it goes back way before Bill Cohen and Olympia Snowe. It's Margaret Chase Smith. Margaret Chase Smith stood up as a Republican woman senator from Maine to the whole Joseph McCarthy, Roy Cohn poison. And she had a great backbone, and she, more than almost anyone else, helped save our country from a period that was quite like this one, where Joseph McCarthy and Roy Cohn were spreading lies, and she goes down in history for that. You know, you talk about Rick's previous book, Everything Trump Touches Dies. That's the question of our age, which is why just his little stubby fingerprints on people caused them to lose what made Margaret Chase Smith such an icon in our nation's history.
And Rick, there's an objective measure of how that exactly happens. As we talk about Susan Collins, in the first 3 months of President Trump's term, she had a 67% approval rating, according to Morning Consult in Maine. Last week, a new Morning Consult poll has her down at 42%. That's 25 points, and she now has the highest disapproval number of any senator, including now Mitch McConnell, at least in this poll, in the country. So that's a snapshot of what that Trump has done to her. You're also putting up ads about Cory Gardner. Who else will you be looking at through this impeachment process?
Well, we're looking at folks who are posturing as if they are going to be the independent and swing votes in this, that they're going to do the right thing. And the ones that aren't are going to get a visit from us. And there's been a tremendous public response at the Lincoln Project to this push, and we're going to continue to fight. And so folks like Martha McSally and Tom Tillis can expect a call pretty soon.
All right, Rick Wilson, thank you very much. Nice warning. Again, his new book is Running Against the Devil, a plot to save America from Trump and Democrats from themselves. Kurt Bardella and Walter Isaacson, thank you both as well. Great to have you.